Hey guys, welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel if you are new here. I want to do a paranormal story time today for you guys. It'll probably be a couple smaller story times because there's so many things going on that I'm going to have to break this up into pieces and separate videos, because I could honestly make a 6-hour video of just straight paranormal content that all happened in the same house. So we're gonna jump right in, and please excuse my memory as I kind of try to recall. It's been a long time since I've dealt with any of it. I moved out almost 3 years ago onto my own, so I kind of am a little bit, some things I remember well and some other things are a little bit fuzzy. So anyway, we're just gonna jump right into it, so let's get at it. So, I lived in the same house from the time I was 3 until I was 18, so 15 years I lived in the same house. It was built in the 70s. It was a 70s style show home. So it was a very large house. It had a lot of useless space, we'll say that. So being that it was a show home, it had a lot of rooms that kind of didn't really have a purpose. It had like the really tall, like 12-foot ceilings with skylights, and it had these big open hardwood floor rooms that didn't really have any purpose. So my dad is, he owns a hunting company. So the one room we had a lot of his mounts in there, which I'm sorry if that upsets anybody. I know that it's kind of like a touchy topic. I just kind of want to give you guys a general idea of this house, because that does play kind of a role in some of the stories of kind of how the house is laid out. So that room had heads in it, mounts, if you will, and had a pool table in it. And it was a big open room. And then as it had a couple stairs, and then it had another part of it that was like up a couple stairs. It was a little higher, but it was still part of the same room, if that makes sense. And my mom had a crafting area out there, so she had a table, she had shelves and stuff like that. She had a crafting area in there. And then as you went down a couple stairs, it then turned into another room by the front door. And this room was, we called the African room, so it was all African style furniture, like very, my dad had mounts of animals that he had brought home from Africa. So we had like wildebeest, springbuck, I believe they're called. Like we had all these very, these African animal heads in there, and that was kind of our like showpiece room. Neither my brother nor I was allowed in there. That was kind of just, it had a fireplace that was just kind of like, more of a showpiece anyway. No one really ever went in there. After a while it kind of turned into more of a storage room. And then the front door was there. And then when you went upstairs, we had a hallway that had, it was almost like balconies, and you could look down into this one big kind of room that's kind of like 3 rooms, if that makes sense. I'm probably butchering this explanation, but I'll do my best. So the house was very open. That was a really big thing about it. It was very open, but a lot of useless space. So we also had a basement. We had a living room. We had my room was at the top of the stairs. Actually, my room had started. My brother's was the top of the stairs. I was beside him, but then when he got a little older, we switched rooms. And then there was a bathroom, and then as you went down the hallway across the balcony hallway, you got to my parents' room at the end of the hall. So, basically, I'm just gonna kind of go with what stories pop into my head. There's no rhyme or reason. I don't really remember specific timelines, so it's kind of hard for me to keep it in a timeline setting. But I do know one that I will start out with when my brother was just an infant. So we're 6 years apart. So he was born when I was 6. And I remember he was still a baby at this time, like not walking yet baby. He had a little stuffed pig that when you squeezed its foot, it would sing like, "This little piggy went to market," and blah, 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 and like would give you the whole spiel, whatever. And when you squeezed its foot, you really had to like squeeze, and you had to feel for the button. It was not easy to kind of just bump and it would go off. So this particular toy had a tendency to go off on its own. It would like move and kick its little piggy feet. It was like sitting and it would kick its little piggy feet. It definitely had the tendency to go off on its own. I got so freaked out by it when I was younger that it got to the point where I was hiding it. I was burying it in the toy box, I was putting it under the couch. I just didn't, like, out of sight, out of mind, I didn't want to hear it. It freaked me out so bad growing up. And my mom is a huge believer in paranormal, we both are. My dad, not so much, or so he says. I really think that he kind of doesn't like to admit it because it freaks him out, and I think he didn't really want to freak out myself and my brother because we both were very scared. So, my mom always found it interesting more so than scary, but I was terrified, so I used to hide it. A lot of his toys would go off. And then we came to a point when he was about, oh god, I want to say like 4... I'm trying to remember how old he was. He was young, but he was talking and could make sentences. So my dad had gone away to Vegas to play for billiards championships. And so it was just myself, my brother, and my mom home alone. And I remember that once my dad left, my mom was confused because she'd hear my brother talking in his bedroom, and I could hear him because we shared a wall. So I could hear him talking in his room to someone, like having a full, like a kid, but a full, pretty decently coherent conversation with somebody, and giggling and laughing, and I could hear him jumping around in his bed. So I thought that was really weird. I told my mom. She'd heard him a couple times and walked in, and he would be standing there facing the corner, smiling and jumping up and down and giggling and like talking. And that's kind of when I was like, ew, like, bye, you need to go. Like, get rid of the whole brother, throw away the whole brother. No, this is creepy as shit. Like, no thank you. So my mom's like, okay, well, he's probably just, like, he's at that age where they kind of just, their imagination, whatever. I honestly think she was freaked out too, but she didn't want to freak me out. I'm very sensitive and freaked out by that kind of thing. So I remember finally the one day my mom came in, my brother was kind of like doing whatever, and obviously he's focusing on something that isn't there. And my mom looks at him and is like, oh, like, Carter, who are you talking to? Like, who's, you're, like, smiling a lot, like, is someone's talking to you? Like, what's going on? And he looks at her and he goes, yeah, it's my friend Johnny, he came to visit. And, like, I looked at my... I hate this so much. I literally, it freaks me out so bad. And I looked at my mom and she looks at me and she's like, well, who's Johnny? And he's like, oh, like, he comes and visits once in a while. And I was like, okay, well, you know, it is bedtime, so it's probably time to tell Johnny that it's time for him to go. He can come back tomorrow. And my brother looks my mom dead ass in the face and goes, Johnny doesn't like you. No. I looked at my mom, and she looks at me, and I turned around, and I walked the fuck out of that bedroom. I walked out of there, I went in my room, I shut the door, I was like, not today, Satan, I am not playing this game with you. No. No way, I'm done, I don't want to hear about it, I don't want to know about it, it's done. So my mom's like, okay, well, that's fine, but he needs to go now, it's time for bed. And I could tell my mom was, like, kind of getting a little bit upset at this point because now she's freaked out, like, now it's too much. It's getting a little too real. So he, like, whatever, he went to bed, it was fine, I heard him making a few noises, but nothing, whatever. And then when my dad got back, he was only gone, I think, for 3 or 4 days. When he came back, he was like, oh, like, how was your visit? And, like, asked me and my brother, and I was like, good, like, our visit. Sorry. He asked how it was when he was gone, like, did we do anything fun? And I was like, yeah, like, we went out to the barn, I had friends over, whatever, we played, whatever, all that kind of thing, whatever me at 12 years old or whatever, however old I was into at that point. And my brother goes, oh, it was good, Johnny came to visit. He almost caused a divorce. Just kidding. So my brother, he basically, like, he's like, oh, like, Johnny came to visit, and my dad looks directly at my mom, like, without even skipping a beat, and he's like, who's Johnny? And my mom's like, oh, I guess it's Carter's friend. And my dad, it took him a second to catch on, and then he realized, and my dad's like, well, who is he? And he's like, oh, he comes to visit me in my room. And that's, like, when I really was like, you all need to shush, like, just quiet. I'm okay. So my parents kind of just took it as like it is what it is. There's not really much that we can do about it. So like it's weird, but he's a kid, so like imaginary friends, whatever. Just the weirdest part was when he said like Johnny doesn't like you, and the fact that he could have such full-on engagement with something that's not there, it just seemed to be too much. And then as my brother and I were getting older, things got weirder and weirder. This was also around the time that my parents were their marriage was starting to fall apart. I'm not going to get too in-depth to that. They did get a divorce, and the only reason I'm mentioning this is because a large factor of the paranormal activity in our house had to do with the negativity. So, like I said, as we were getting older, it was more, but then also if my parents were fighting or there was tension in the house, you could literally feel the negative energy in this house. It was absolutely, like, it almost made you nauseous. You could just feel that there was just this negative energy and just this negative presence. And anytime anything happened in our house that was paranormal, you could just tell that it was not good. It was not something that you're like, oh, like my grandmother came to visit. You could just tell that it was not something that should be there. And our pets noticed it. My friends noticed it. Family has noticed it, has seen things, has experienced things. So another memory, we'll kind of maybe keep this video to more when I was younger. So I remember I had a friend over, her name is Kelby. She came over and we were down in our basement, because in our basement we had our computers. So my mom had one, my dad had one, and then I had one. And when you were sitting at my computer, if you leaned back and looked, you could see the landing and the last 4 stairs as you were coming down the basement stairs. So you'd come down the first stairs, landing, and then come down and walk directly to the computers. So if you were like this, you could see. So I think we were playing Doctor's Office or something stupid, and I was on my computer typing whatever, and she was sitting in the chair, and she like leaned back and kind of was like talking, and we were giggling, and she like looked, and then she literally just went dead white and just froze. And I looked at her and I was like, hey, like, and like joking around, and she's just like sitting there, and I'm like, are you okay? And she's like, no. She's like, I'm not okay, we need to go upstairs. Because it was just me and her in the basement, my mom was upstairs, and I was like, why? And she's like, because like I don't want to be down here anymore, we need to go upstairs. So I'm like, okay. And like she's starting to freak me out at this point. We go upstairs, and she tells me that when she leaned back and was looking over by the landing, she saw, oh, this freaks me out because I never saw anything like this, but I'll get to it. So she saw a shadow figure go from one wall across the landing into the next wall. She watched it walk, and that's why she got all like weirded out. And she told me this, and I was like, you're joking around, like don't fuck around, it's not funny. And she's like, no, I'm like dead serious. I saw what I saw. And I was like, okay, well, I do believe that there's something weird in this house, so I'm really not surprised, but like you need to be honest. And she's like, I'm 100% serious, I'm 100% honest. She never came over again after that day. I will tell you right now, we stopped being friends. She would not come over anymore because she was too scared of my house. So, how I can kind of tell you that she was not lying was, we played this game in our basement. My dad would sit at his computer desk, and he would sit at his computer desk but with his back to the computer, so the computer would be behind him, and we'd be standing like facing him basically, and we had a big like soft exercise ball, and he would like throw it at me and my brother and try to like knock us down. It was a really fun game, we loved to play it all the time. And so we had our backs to that same landing, and he was facing the landing, and I remember we're playing, we're having a time, whatever, and then all of a sudden he like the same expression, the same reaction. It was the scariest shit. I've never seen a grown man with a look on his face like that. He stopped, pale, again, quiet, and we're like, what are you doing? Like, we're trying to play, and he's like, oh, like nothing, and like whatever, went back to normal, but I could tell he was just being off. And then later that night, I asked my mom what happened because she didn't want to say anything in front of my brother, neither did my dad. My dad didn't even want me to know. But basically he had seen the exact same thing a shadow figure going from one side of the wall to the other and into the wall. Casually went by. It was about 5 foot tall. Just a shadow figure. It didn't really have a lot of like definition. So that's kind of where I realized that there was truth to what she had said, and that she wasn't just joking around to upset me because she knew it bothered me. So then after that, it was like a series of things where stuff would just go missing. So the one that I remember the most, it's really random. I had Spectra face gel, like a face cleanser, and it was like a big bottle with like a pump on it. And it was in my bathroom because I had a bathroom that me and my brother shared, and then my parents had one in their bedroom. So it was in mine and my brother's bathroom, and I was the only one that used it. And I went in to use it one day and it wasn't there. And I was like, oh haha, like funny, can I have my face wash back? And everyone in the house, still to this day, denies that they had anything to do with it. And my mom legitimately got pissed off at my dad and like was like, if you ever face gel, just give it back. It's not funny anymore. It was gone for 3 months. And then one day, it popped back up. And my dad still says it was not him. He's like, he was a jokester. But he knew the difference between a joke and when like 3 months have gone by and I needed to go buy a new one because you didn't give it back. He knew the difference, and when he did joke around or anything, he would always eventually tell you, obviously, that this was a joke. He straight up was like, I had nothing to do with it, I swear to you. I had a pair of glass spirals for my stretch ears, right before I moved out, actually, like a month before I moved out. I didn't wear them to bed because they're too heavy, so they will stretch out your ears and then make your ears bigger than what they actually should be stretched to. So at night, I would take them out, and I would put them back into their little like plastic case, and I put them on the shelf in my bathroom. I went to wear them a couple days later, gone. I literally could not find them anywhere. I asked everyone in the whole house. Everyone's like, no, haven't seen them. I literally moved out a month later and cleaned my whole room out, my whole bathroom out. Nothing. And now my dad is doing renovations to that house, and they have never popped back up. Keys would go missing. Remotes would go missing, just very random objects that you wouldn't notice at first that they were missing, but then when you noticed, you would eventually notice. It wasn't obvious right off the bat that they were gone. And so that was kind of where we were at. Many weird things continued to happen if my brother and I were home alone. So I would usually be in the living room watching TV, and he'd be in the basement on the computer, doing whatever, playing games, whatnot. My parents would go and they had billiard nights, so they'd go out and play pool. They would do all that kind of thing. I hate this so much. So I would be in the living room, and when you're sitting in our living room, you could see the front entryway light was on, because obviously that was on. It was usually nighttime when this happened, or when anything weird happened. And a lot of the times it was when my brother and I were home alone, or I was home by myself. So I remember sitting there, watching TV, whatever, doing my thing, and I could see the light out of the corner of my eye shining into the opening of the living room, and it went like off, on. And I just kind of looked and was like, whoa, like what the hell was that? And then I thought, okay, like it was just the light, like it's not a big deal, it probably just had a little power surge, whatever. I was very big about trying not to make things more paranormal seeming than they were. I always tried to give it a better explanation. But then I'm sitting there, and about 45 minutes later, it's like off, on. And it wasn't like a quick blink, it would like go off and then come back on, as if someone like switched it and then switched it back. And I was like starting to get freaked out, so I called my brother and I made him sit upstairs with me until my parents got home. And I would tell my mom, and it would never ever ever happen when she was home. It was so frustrating, and I would tell her every time, I'm like, when I'm home alone, weird things are happening. And she's like, I know, when I'm home alone, weird things happen too, like I believe you. So that was a big one. And then I remember when I was in grade 5, I believe, we lived very, very, very close to my school, and my brother at this point was still in like a preschool / daycare style. So I walked home from school, and I had a key to the house. I would go home, and I was home alone for about half an hour until my mom got home, and then we'd go pick up my brother. So I walked home, like every day, walked in the house, grabbed a snack, sat down on the TV, on the couch at the TV, watching TV, and like even as I'm talking about it right now, this is like, my heart is literally racing. Like it's so bad. It's so bad. So I'm sitting there and I'm just watching TV, and not loud because obviously I'm the only one home. We didn't have any pets at the time, and I start hearing like footsteps going up the stairs, like boots, footsteps going up the stairs. And I remember I froze at first because my first thought was someone is in the house with me. I'm home alone. I'm like 12 years old. I'm fucking terrified. And so I froze, and I kind of sat there for a second. I'm listening to it going up the stairs, and I grabbed the phone. I was smart enough to do that. I grabbed the phone, and in our living room we had these little French doors that you could go out into the front yard with them. And I knew that like if someone's going up the stairs, if I run by those stairs to go out the front door, because it was like our front door and the stairs were right beside the front door to go upstairs, I knew if I went out there, like the person would probably see me going out the door and chase me or do whatever they planned to do. So 12-year-old me was really thinking in that moment, which I'm really surprised for how young I was. And I opened the French doors and I bolted into the front yard, and I called my mom and I'm like, someone is in the house, like someone is here. And she's like, okay, like go down to the neighbors right now, go to the neighbor's house, stay there until I get home. So I went down to the neighbors, I told them what happened, and his mom's like, okay, like just stay here, whatever. My mom got home and no one had been in the house. The front door was still locked from when I got home, because I was taught that when I got home, the first thing I was supposed to do was lock the door behind me and make sure everything else was locked, and the door was still locked. So that was a good one. I really enjoyed being the piss scared out of me. So yeah, I'm basically gonna end that video there. I have so many more stories to tell when it comes to the paranormal things that happened in our house. Like so many, it's crazy. Like they're starting to run through my mind right now, so I might pre-record a couple more just while everything's still fresh in my mind. So if you like this video, give it a thumbs up and let me know. If you like my channel, give me a subscribe and let me know. I really appreciate it. My first video got almost 100 views so far, and I'm really excited about that, so I really appreciate all of that. So basically, yeah, give me a like and a subscribe, and if you want to see more of these videos, let me know. Comment below and let me know if you want another paranormal storytime video. I have so many to offer and so many stories. I'm going to pre-record a couple, I believe, just to make sure that while it's still fresh in my mind, I'm starting to think about it now as I'm filming, that I can make sure that I do the best that I can for you guys. So thank you so much for watching, and enjoy the rest of your day.